Well, we're going to get started.
Yeah.
This is, like we said, this is Russ and Russ with the in the afternoon or whatever we end up calling this podcast. But
Right.
just a chance to kind of recap and go over some things that happen um, each week in youth ministry. We hope there's more than one or two people who watch this, but you never know. I have high expectations, you can tell.
Yeah. My mom will watch, I'm sure.
That's I hope I get my mom to watch, and that's at least two.
There's two.
Hi, Mom. So, well, I figured today we'd start and talk about kind of how summer was and what went well, what didn't go well, just kind of what you did this summer. So, what was your summer like?
Well, it was extremely busy. It was not intentional. I've learned the same lesson, it seems, numerous times over summers, and not to overschedule yourself. And somehow, it's one of those. Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. And just, some opportunities coming up that I couldn't say no to, and so I ended up being gone a whole lot. I finally, at one point when I had solidified everything, I looked at my calendar, and there was a period from mid-June until the end of July that out of those 40 or so days, I was gone about 32 of them, and so that was insane. And for an introvert, that was a heck of a schedule, but it was a lot of fun. It's definitely one of those seasons in youth ministry of being busy and getting to spend time with the youth and extra time that you don't get during the school year. So it was good stuff, and got to meet new people and camps, and just overall it was a good experience. But it was just a daunting, felt like climbing a mountain, and the end of it was there was a reward of getting some time off and some vacation. But yeah, it was good. And we'll get into more specifics later. What was your overall feel of your summer?
Overall, seemed to be pretty good. I tried to, being married and having a 2-year-old kind of changes how my summers look like from what they used to look like.
Right.
But so I tried to make sure I didn't have too many things back to back and was able to come home and spend some time. So I really didn't have more than a couple of weeks. Like, I had nothing that was 2 full weeks back to back. I would have
Right.
maybe a junior high mission trip, and then something right after that, but not the full time away. So it was nice to be able to be gone. We did some things we hadn't ever done before, but we were able to kind of keep it where it wasn't just daunting for me or for the youth, because they have camps and vacations and stuff like that too. And I think one of the things that we used to do is one of the things we used to do was to just pack the summer full of things all the time. And I think the last 2 years I've kind of learned that sometimes less and better quality and more focused is better than being packed so much of the time. And especially with situations where people are the only youth director at a church, it's very hard to be gone all the time, because you're gone with 15, 20, some maybe 5 to 20 students, but there's still 20 or so students who are sitting back at the church and who are there. And if you're gone, then you're not meeting with them. And so I was trying to reach that balance and meet that balance this summer of being gone and being back, both for family and for the youth ministry.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that's a little strange being in that place of wanting to go and do, but there's still things that need to be done at the church. There's things that need to be done at home, and it presents an interesting challenge, and kind of what you named of even nowadays the kids, the youth are really busy. There's so much offered these days, camps for everything, and so there's, I used to sit very contently for 6 of the 8 weeks of the summer at home and kind of do whatever I wanted to, but that's kind of a rare thing these days.
What was one of the what were some of the cool things you did that we may not know about that you did this summer?
Sure. Well, my summer really got started with a thing called Texas Youth Academy, which is based on something Duke does called Duke Youth Academy. Duke started doing that in about 99 or 2000. It was right around the millennia. And so what it is, Duke Youth Academy and Texas Youth Academy are 2-week experiences where youth get to learn about theology from seminary professors and from pastors They learn about everything from creation to salvation, baptism. You cover a wide variety of things in 2 weeks, and more or less, I would call it like your first semester of seminary on steroids or sped up. And so it was a cool thing I got to do. Last summer I did Duke Youth Academy, and this summer I got to do Texas Youth Academy, which was great because it required less travel, and I got to hang out with some Texas people, and it's something that the Texas Conference actually puts on at the United Methodist Church, and they meet. The camp is held in Georgetown at Southwestern University, and it's the last week of June and the first week of July is when it's typically held, and it's been going. I think this is the 5th or 6th year of it. And so we have about 32 kids and then 18 to 20 staff. I was a small group leader, a mentor group leader, and so we kind of at the end of the day would just talk about what happened in the day. In the morning you hear a lecture from a seminary professor, and then you have arts activities where you connect arts and theology, or a mission event in the afternoon. And then at night you have a worship service, and the worship services take on all different forms and feels with the different themes of the day. But also you do everything from high church to contemporary to gospel to traditional worship, and a blend and a world service. There's a Taizé service for those who are familiar with that style. But it's a neat thing. It's 2 weeks of camp is a lot, but it's really necessary to get into that. And you see the fruit, even though you're exhausted and you're ready to go home by the end of it. You see the fruit of spending 2 weeks solid together. If you think of in terms of the 1 week camps and how much there's the feeling of closeness and connectedness. If you give that, multiply that by 2. There's even more crying and the last night of camp, and there's these great relationships that are formed, and it's a wonderful thing, and I would advise anybody who's got a youth in their youth group, especially if you're Methodist, to look into those 2 things if they're looking at going into if they're considering theology as a major in college. They're both for rising juniors and seniors in high school. So if kids are kind of showing that spark or have named it and claimed it for themselves, I'd encourage you to check those things out. There's a lot of other similar camps that go on throughout the country. I just don't know what they are. But go ahead.
Is there a website or something like that you can go to?
I think if you Google Texas Youth Academy, and it might be texasyouthacademy.org. I may be wrong, but if you Google Texas Youth Academy, it will pop up for you. And the site's not extremely extensive in its content, but it'll give you the basics of how to sign up, when the camp is, where it meets, and all that good stuff. And you can get in touch with the people who are leading and know more things than I do.
Well, we did something called SIFAT this summer.
Yeah, I wanted to hear about that.
SIFAT.org is the website, SIFAT.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is it's the Third World Missionary Training Place. So you'll have people who come in from Nigeria or Bolivia or something like that, and they can learn appropriate technologies and things to take back to their country. But they also have students who come in and they do basically a week-long camp with them. And so we spent a week-long camp, and I can't give you all the details, but 2 days were spent in a mission experience, meaning we were the actual participants in the Third World Village. We got kicked out of our village in the middle of the night. We had to go to a refugee camp. We had to sleep in a slum. You can find out a lot more if you can see pictures and stuff from different groups at cfat.org. But it was a experience where I had times where my youth hated me. They glared at me when I walked by because we were sitting under a tarp, a tent that we had made. Yeah. And we'd eaten just beans and rice for the meal, but that we cooked ourselves. I guess I give away more. It was fun because our group we had to build a fire, and it was raining. We had to build a fire to cook our beans and rice and stuff. So our group went ahead and we waited and we cooked it the right amount of time and as best as we could tell, and made sure everything was done. And the other group wanted to eat until they hurry up and ate. And one of the kids said it seemed like it was like bean dip with chips already in it because it was the crunchy rice and beans and stuff. So we did that, and that was like Tuesday and Wednesday. And then Thursday we went and hung out at a trailer park and played with some kids at a trailer park. And Friday did some things around. We learned about sustainable agriculture and plants that grow really well in other parts of the country and other parts of the world that are very nutritious, and teaching about that. And so I brought some plants home and growing some of those just to see if I can get them growing and stuff. But it's a 7-day trip, 7-day event. We stopped in Meridian, Mississippi on the way over. We stopped by the Duck Dynasty. Duck Commander place. Yeah. The kids wanted to see that. I think they were under the impression like that they'd be sitting on their front porch and we just walk up and say hi. Yeah. And it's like this whole huge compound with most of it is sales and merchandising. Okay. We never saw them. All we saw was the cutouts of them. Yeah. But it was nice to go, and we got our picture under the sign and stuff like that. Right. Stayed in Meridian, and then in Mississippi later on that day. And then we just drove in the rest of the day. We were there Sunday, and then came back on Friday, actually. So it was, I guess, 6 days.
So you said the camp was in Mississippi?
Camp is in Lineville, Alabama.
Alabama, okay.
So Meridian was kind of our halfway point. And then they have the one location, but they do missions in a lot of other areas. They have stuff in Bolivia, in a couple of places in Bolivia is where I've gone with them. But they have a list of, if you go on the website, they'll list all the different missions, some in Africa and such. And a lot of times when someone comes over and trains and stuff, they go back and they create a connection so that you can take a youth group and go to that location. Right. Because they already have people on the ground there, they know them and such. So it makes it a little easier to do a trip with them through that.
So you mentioned you brought some plants back. Did you see that there were any, like, that's kind of an interesting thing because you bring back memories and stuff, but sometimes bringing the tangible things back to your congregation and to your everyday life. Did you see any of that, like, pardon the pun, but bearing fruit in the life of the youth?
I haven't done it a whole lot. The kids ask me how the plants are doing. Okay. Some. So I brought Malabar spinach, which is a tropical spinach. We use it actually over here in the United States a lot or not a lot, but it's a decorative thing. Right. But nobody knows you can take and pluck off the leaves and eat them. Right. And they're high in nutrients and stuff. And then I also brought quail grass, which is has a poison in it, but you blanch the leaves, and then once you blanch them, then you're able to eat them and such. I will add the Malabar spinach to some things, but probably not the quail grass, just because it didn't have much of a taste. But we did also learn about things like even like, and everybody has them. I don't know if you have them down there on the coast, but muscadine and those leaves, the grape leaves, are very, very nutritious and used in food. Like Greek food uses leaves a lot. Right. But what they do is they'll take and they'll dry those out, no matter what type of leaf you're using, wherever you are in the world. The idea is you dry those leaves out in a solar oven and then grind them down and make a powder. And so now you have a powder that you can add to tortillas, which normally would not have a lot of nutritional value, just the corn or just the flour. You now have something that you can add to it that would give you some more nutrients. And you can substitute up to 20% of flour in a recipe with this powder. So you can make an incredible Hulk cake. It's going to be green, but you can make an incredible Hulk cake or something like that, and it actually is going to have those nutrients that are in the leaves. And the leaves apparently have a lot more nutrients than the food does, like the fruit, stuff like that does.
Huh. Interesting. Well, that's cool. Like I said, I'd heard before about SIFAT, but never really heard details or exactly what it was. I just heard it referenced in passing. So was that? Would you say that was highlight, or I think you just said it was something different?
That would probably. It started off the summer, so it's kind of hard to say at the moment that was the highlight when I was going through it because I didn't know it was coming up. Mm-hmm. But really looking through, that was probably. It was a great way to start off the summer. Yeah. Doing something completely different than. What was interesting about it is it was a mission trip that we didn't build anything, we didn't help anybody, we didn't, I mean, we played with the kids at the trailer park, but
Right.
we
That's
kind of
not.
redefining what our idea of missions, and that was the whole part of the
Mm,
curriculum that they had, was redefining, is missions just helping
yeah.
someone
Yeah.
overseas or something like that, or if God calls us to help people overseas, but God also calls us to obey our mom and dad. If we do one but don't do the other, are
Right.
we really doing
Right.
what God calls us to do?
Yeah.
Um, and us looking at, we talked about the fact, is Wednesday night youth mission opportunity, and we said that it was.
Hmm.
We had a water fight with the kids at the trailer park, and I asked them on the way back. I said, "Is a water fight missions?"
Mm,
And we come to the idea that it was. You don't have to put a lot of money behind something, or travel a long way. It's showing God's love to wherever you are,
right.
wherever you're at, and that. But unfortunately, it's very hard. We don't like to do things that, or it's hard to get behind something like that if you're like giving money or something like that.
Right. Right. Well, and I
So,
think that there's, the mission trips that we've done before where we go and build, and I'm speaking we in a general everyone. I'm just going to throw everybody into one big lump. But these mission trips that are great in what they do in terms of providing housing or wheelchair accessibility. They're great, but it presents kind of what you all are experiencing of a very narrow view of what missions is, and that we have to feel like we're useful sometimes
mm,
in missions, and so it becomes we set out to go help others, but in fact what we kind of are searching for is that feeling useful. So in some ways you're turning it back on yourself, rather than thinking like, oh, like what a cool thing to do a water day with kids, in this setting.
yeah.
Whether or not they get to do that a lot or not, it's different because you're there and you're coming into their backyard and spending time with them on purpose. So yeah, but that's a very hard hurdle to get over, because I think in some ways the mission trips that we go on condition us to go think of mission trips as, I need to go help someone so that I feel useful. And I think that's a hard thing to get past, is that God uses us in mysterious ways, not just in nails and screwdrivers. Uh, yeah.
Well, also on that is the idea that missions is what we do when we help someone less fortunate than us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, God says go, and we're supposed to do missions. So if we're helping the ones who are less fortunate than us, at some point, who then can they be a mission to somebody?
Hmm.
And then can they be a mission to somebody? And then can they be a mission? So if our concept is we had to help someone who's less fortunate, we had a group that went over and helped with the ladies' yard, and the lady could very easily pay for somebody to come do it. And they went and they mowed and they scraped and they did flower beds and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And some of them were like, "Hey, I mean, she doesn't really need this. She could probably hire somebody to do this. What's
Right.
what's the point?" And they talk about the fact, though, that it's showing God's love. She needs to know that God loves her just as much as a kid sitting on a dirt floor in Uganda needs to know that
Right.
God loves, and showing that love. And a lot of times there's a mission field that we don't think of as a mission field because
Hmm.
someone can buy or pay or doesn't deserve, quote unquote, deserve, for someone to come and spend that time,
Right.
when it's usually not about the work.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a lot cooler for us to say we helped a kid in Uganda than we helped my neighbor next door who
Right. Right.
didn't need the help.
Yeah. Um,
So was
well,
Texas? Oh,
go ahead.
was Texas Youth Academy your highlight? Or
Yeah. I mean, it's right up my alley in terms of what I really enjoy. I enjoy all things about youth ministry, but um, there's something exciting about getting to watch people discover new things about theology, about God, about faith, and you really are beckoning them in Texas Youth Academy and things like it. You're beckoning them into um, a deeper search, a deeper understanding, a deeper experience than what sometimes we get kind of stuck in when we typically just do church once a week or maybe twice a week if we're lucky. And so you have this really intense experience where you're literally spending 7 days a week in an intentional community that is, all studying together, reading together, worshiping together, praying together, and it's just it's a really neat thing, and it's kind of what I love, and just it's a nice refresher for me because I get to hear lectures on things and hear different thoughts of people who are getting paid to sit in offices and read books and do research and benefit, just kind of take the cream from all their labor and just say, oh, thank you very much. And then we just it's great the first week is kind of all laid out for them, and then the second week the groups are split into different groups, and they help lead worship themselves, and in a different we have a group that does contemporary, a group that does high church, a group that does world worship, and they do all these different areas, and they get put sometimes in a comfort zone, sometimes in a very uncomfortable place, and so the second week is really like where you get to see that fruit and all the the growth that's happening and all the gifts that are just existing and are also being watered and fed in that group of youth, and also for me it was a great way to network because I met a lot of people, having worked up in the northern part of the Texas Conference before and been in North Texas. I got to meet people that are in Houston, people that are in this area of the state, youth workers, and have better network at my beck and call when I need them that aren't 6-7 hours away or more with some of my friends that are in other states and whatnot. But yeah, I would say it's a highlight, and there's a lot of great things about the summer. It's just getting to do 2 weeks of theology work with kids is, like I said, it's that's my bread and butter. So it was great, but there's a lot of other fun things, like I said, good things, but that's a very unique experience, kind of like what you're kind of saying. SIFAT is very different, and therefore you can kind of appreciate it.
What'd y'all do on a weekly basis? Do y'all have things going on during the week?
Sure. During the summer, we kind of shift our gears. We do Sunday night is our big youth gathering night during the school year, and when school lets out, we switch it to Wednesdays. And so Wednesdays during June and July, we had different activities, and one night was a bowling night. We have a little farm summer league baseball team, and so a couple times we went to their games, so we did that, and then some of our members have a pool, and so the kids went over and had a pool night. So it was mostly just kind of gatherings to keep people plugged into each other, and to make sure that we don't go 3 months without really seeing each other and gathering as a youth group. So what about y'all?
I still did Sunday and Wednesday, but Sundays get kind of shot with trips and things like that. We also did when we were in town and stuff, did lunch bunch.
Okay.
And I tried it last year. I did it at a restaurant every time. This year I tried it at the church. It was interesting because I had a different group almost every time. I'd say bring your lunch, come hang out. I found out that about an hour and a half is about good. From 12 to 1:30 is just about good.
Yeah.
So we had Sunday night, and then Monday, and then Wednesday night we still did Bible study. And what we found was at the end, I ran out of, I had no meals provided, right. And so I said, hey, I'm gonna get stuff to make a meal. And so we bought stuff to make a meal, and I told the kids, I said, hey, whoever wants to come up, we'll go shopping at 2:30, and then we'll go cook the stuff. And I had about 3 weeks there where they really, really enjoyed coming up and cutting strawberries and making salad and doing, and cooking the stuff and such. So I'm wondering if that's not something to do next year, is to do or next summer is maybe every Wednesday, even go to someone's house and tell the parents there, we want to cook, we want a meal, but we want to cook it. So don't provide the whole thing, just be available, and or we'll provide it. But we'll cook a meal together and eat it, clean up, and do Bible study. So that may be what we do next year on Wednesdays.
Yeah, that's cool. So when you were on a trip, and there's are the Wednesday activities or Sunday activities canceled during that time?
It depended. I had an assistant this summer that helped me,
Okay.
but sometimes she was here and sometimes she was with us on the trip.
Right.
So yes, generally if it was like church camp, we just canceled everything for the week for church camp.
Right.
It makes it hard, and it's where I'd like to get some more people involved.
Mm-hmm.
So because a Wednesday night, if I could schedule those ahead of time and have someone else who could lead, where I could just show up for them,
Right.
then they could happen no matter what. And that may be what we do, is try to schedule all of those Wednesday night meals at people's houses early in the summer, so that it's all done. And that way, if I go, great. If I don't, if I take a Wednesday where I stay home with family, or I'm gone on vacation, or we're going to a trip or something, at least one thing per week would happen.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Well, what's I was gonna just shift gears if it's okay with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was curious. So we talked a lot about like jobs, and well, not jobs, but ministry stuff. I was curious about. You mentioned at the beginning about having a family and a 2-year-old, and so what's something fun that you got to do with your family, or just getting away from the sphere of youth ministry and being Russell? So. Well,
it was kind of neat for the first time, and this is kind of combining the both of them. But for the first time, Megan came up and stayed with family in Jacksonville, or friends in Jacksonville, and brought Eli out to Lakeview.
Okay.
While we were at camp and stuff, and so he was able to come, and we got on the golf cart, and he loved riding on the golf cart. He'd sit in my lap, and he'd drive.
Yeah.
Wouldn't really drive, but we'd sit there and drive around and stuff. And then pretty much during the summer, it was taking days off and stuff to be at home. And we went to the zoo. We took Eli to the zoo. He's finally at the age now where you can do something a little extended,
right,
and not have to take a nap every 3 hours, or not just complete breakdown. We are in the terrible 2s, terrible 3s area,
right,
but it's at least a little easier doing that and such. And so Labor Day we're going to be off and go down for a family reunion. We had another time scheduled that we weren't able to take with stuff going on.
Right.
So, but I think that's one of the keys, is to still try to make sure that family is first, even in the youth ministry, and that's good for you, and it's also good for, I think, your youth to see that I'm there and I'm pretty much available.
Yeah.
But I'm not always there. I'm not always available for everything. And
right.
I love you dearly, and I would do anything for you. But I love my family more, and they're first. And so we are going to take time to be family and do those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. That is cool that you get to come down and visit the camp and kind of see what it is you do when you go away.
Yeah. So have you read anything, or any new games or anything I've done, or anything cool that you found?
Let's see. So one of the parents of one of the youth sent me this thing on Twitter that looked like just a blast. I forget what I think it was called Bubble Soccer, and more or less what it is like you picture like a bubble, like a gerbil bubble, and but it's an inflatable thing, and you just put your torso in it, and so it's like a giant clear beach ball around you, but it makes you into like a human bumper car. And so if you search that, I think that's on YouTube, but it looks like a blast, and it looks like a great equalizer for like talent level, because it's like anything else, you can just choose to take the person out rather than try to kick the ball, and so you can launch yourself into each other. So that looked interesting. I don't know what like the costs would be for something like that, to get those bubbles, and then part of me always worries about injuries, so because I can see somebody just blowing a knee out or something. But that looked like fun. So that was something that I saw, and I can't think. There's another game that I saw, but I can't think of even the name of it, and I couldn't. If I tried to explain what it was, it would just be a disaster.
We bought Skyball, which is it's got a hula hoop net with a little like ball, like a little volleyball. You play just like volleyball, except for the fact that the net, every time you hit it, it goes into the net. So you have 1, 2, 3, and then hit it into the net. And so apparently started in Connecticut or something like that, and that's something that they're doing. Something we did that I just got in were these postcards, and Vistaprint printed these for me.
Okay.
Just got the logo on the front, and on the back it just has the place to put your deal. Real easy to use for everything from birthdays to get well to we wish we were back. One of the things we did in our prayer station, and I just put the link up for 9 prayer stations on ministry to youth, is and I didn't include this one, but we did it on Wednesday night, was just had a list of all the youth who had come or who had visited or whatever before and hadn't been back, and had the youth who were there as one of their stations just fill out a card, say, hey, we wish you were back. And so I think it's a lot better when it's a youth doing this than when it's me doing it, because they're going to see it and they're going to be a little more connected to one of their peers saying, hey, wish you were here, than just coming back from me. But got a stack of them from Vistaprint. Cool. And they just real easy to upload and send off and do. That's cool. If anybody watches this, we are glad you did. And if not, you should. And other than that, we will see you next time. Check out everything on ministrytoyouth.com. All right. Thank you. Bye. Bye.